Okay, the last thing we're going to check before we kind of, deal with everything we've done with automation, you kind of get the feel for it. We're going to start talking a little bit and deal with the last thing of strings, because the strings on this start off the tune. I panned my strings as I would with a real orchestra, violins and violas, cello, double basses, so they would balance out each other. So the real thing that makes it separate in the track is reverb. So let's listen to how we've got things set up. In this case, we started with the violins and violas, the cello and the double basses. We've got 4 tracks, 4 stereo tracks I should add. And we put our violins to the left, our viola to the right, our cello to the left, and the double basses to the right. And I wanted to make sure they weren't sonically sitting on top of each other. So in this case, I've got the violins at -50 because we were talking about stereo pairs. I've got the violins at -50 and +50. I've got the violas on the opposite of that, which is +50 and 100. And then I've got basses at -78 and +5. And I've got cello at -5 and +100. Now, to each, I'm also running the reverb, and I'm using, in this case, I'm using reverb 1 set to, once again, you can pull up a patch out of reverb 1. In this case, we're using a cathedral reverb. And I'm using it as my stereo reverb return. The violins are using bus left, which is going to be -9, and the violas, which are right, are going to be using the right side of that send, which is 10. And I've got it set that way so that when it hits the plugin, it will stay discrete all the way throughout its processing. So let's take a listen to that with just the string intro. Okay, in this case, I wanted the violins to have a little bit more warmth on them, so I put in this case, the Phoenix plugin from CraneSong, which works really well, with a setting of -10, using Opal. And I used the Luster plugin, as opposed to, I didn't want it to be like dark essence or anything where it was too dark. I wanted to still have a little luster. And I've used this plugin. There are 5 different groups of settings that you can use with the Phoenix plugin. If you want something really dark, you can use dark essence, you can use luminescence, you can use luster, you can have any number of plugin settings that you want. I believe the 5 are dark essence, iridescent, luminescent, luster, and radiant. And they all have a different sound and a different texture to what they do to a track. And in this case, I didn't want the violins to be so harsh and so abrasive. So I used it just on the violins, and I let the violas just kind of stand on their own. I've grouped all of those under their own string master. And then in the string master, I use the Jack Joseph Puig, the Puig 670 Pultec plugin, so that I can use a little bit of compression on the entire strings. And then I wrote in, once again, with the reverb and the delays and the fader, I wanted it to sweep. So there are certain places, you'll see here, where I've done little rides on the strings on the sends of the reverb, so that they will just have just a little touch of, on the higher notes, they'll just have a touch more reverb than on the lower notes. It just kind of helps it just sweeten it over just a little bit. So let's listen to it now with all of our strings.
looking at you.
Okay, so eventually those strings will get replaced with real strings. We'll do probably an orchestra.net session where we use the Prague Symphony or something. But we will probably replace those strings so that we have live strings. But we will use the same formula because when I get my pairs down, it'll be individual from violins, violas, cellos, basses, double basses. And those sounds will probably fold right into where we're at now. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to attack the strings in the same way that I would do it when I put live strings on this. So those fold into the session by way of the aux master. So that's going into string master 27 and 28, okay? All of those are the input, and then that's going into our track master of bus 21, 22. So all of the strings are coming into one aux master or one aux send, and then are sending out into where all the other things were sent to earlier today with the L1 on it, and that is bus 21 and 22. And you know, once again, the routing seems to be a little bit more difficult. You just need to plan ahead. Typically, I use all my reverbs from bus 1 to bus, 19 or 20 with all of my reverbs and delays and everything I'm going to do. Then I start my groupings of my bus where I'm going to, use my bus masters and stuff on bus 21. So I can look at a mix that I've done and be within relative certainty that if something is 23, 24, that it's probably a second or third time I've bussed something of a group like BGV master or string master or percussion master or something like that. Because if you work in a logical way, you'll instantly be able to look at your own work and know where you're at. Now, of course, you can always take the time and write something up, but because I typically, as a general rule, get other people's work that I'm working on, I have a kind of a mental cue as to where I want things set up and how I want them set up. So that's pretty much it. We've taken you through the song, and we've kind of deconstructed the mix of what we've done. I did this mix without the aid of the icon. I did this mix in my own room using the trackball, and it doesn't make a difference if you're in a small studio or if you're in a large complex like I am in sound design. What makes a difference is your ears and what you're listening to, your listening environment. It's really important to make sure, once again, your monitors sound good in your room. Take somebody else's material and listen to it in your room, something that you trust, that you know that sounds good, and make sure that what you're listening to is what is correct. Because a lot of times, when you're going to mix in your own room, you kind of take it out and you're like, it didn't sound right. I know a lot of people who say, it just doesn't sound right in my room. Well, that's the first place to start. Make sure that your room sounds right so that you can start to trust when you do something in your room that it's going to be sonically right when you walk out of there. Once again, it's really important to take these things in steps and to learn, to trust your ears, to trust the mixes that you're coming up with, to experiment with things. Try a couple of different steps of what you're doing. Try the tone lux, try the dangerous, try A-design stuff, try the SSL. It's a lot more of expensive thought to go with the AWS 900. But if that's what it takes for you to move up to the next range in your mixes, that's what's really important. The end result is still the bottom line. How does your mix sound when you take it out of the room? How does your mix sound? Does it translate to the rest of the world the way you think it does? Those are really important things. And I hope that we've been able to add something to your mixing environment. And I hope that you can go through here and learn a couple of things and then experiment from that and move forward with your mixing. All right? Good luck.